The fluorescent lights of Aurora Station's biocontainment lab cast long shadows across the sterile white floor. Dr. Marcus Hale stood before the sealed chamber, his reflection ghostly in the reinforced glass. Behind that barrier lay humanity's newest existential threat, Xylaris, a parasitic organism discovered on Horus 4 that had already decimated 3 colonial outposts. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Marcus?" Dr. Elena Yu's voice carried a tremor of concern as she adjusted the neural sensors on his temples. "The Interplanetary Council has explicitly forbidden human trials." Marcus offered a thin smile. "Which is precisely why I'm not filing this as an official trial. Consider it personal research." The year was 2287, and humanity's expansion across the stars had encountered its most formidable biological adversary. Xylaris infections progressed rapidly, neural invasion within hours, behavioral changes within days, complete system failure within weeks. So far, every infected colonist had died. Security Officer Torres crossed her arms, her posture rigid with disapproval. "I should report this. Protocol dictates. Protocol would have us wait months for approval while more colonies fall." Marcus interrupted. "We have a living sample and a unique opportunity. I've developed these neural trackers specifically to monitor the infection pathway." He gestured to the hair-thin sensors covering strategic points on his body. "Engineer Silva has connected them to the station's quantum computers. We'll gather more data in one day than we could in a year of simulations." Rafael Silva nodded from his console, though uncertainty shadowed his features. "The biosensors will transmit real-time data on cellular changes, neural activity, and immune response. If anything goes catastrophically wrong..." His voice trailed off. "Then you'll have precise data on what killed me." Marcus finished bluntly. "But that won't happen. We've prepared the experimental antibodies based on our preliminary research. This is our best chance to understand how Xylaris integrates with human neural tissue." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "There are other methods, computer models, tissue samples, which have all failed to replicate the actual infection process," Marcus said, his tone softening. "Elena, the Xylaris doesn't just attack cells, it communicates with them. It adapts in ways our simulations can't predict. I need to experience its progression to truly understand it." The team fell silent. The only sound, the gentle hum of equipment and the soft beeping of the monitoring systems, beyond the laboratory windows. The blue-green curve of Horus 4 dominated the view, deceptively serene from orbit. Torres finally spoke. "Commander Reyes will have all our credentials revoked if this goes wrong." "Then we'll make sure it doesn't," Marcus replied, rolling up his sleeve. "Silva, are the monitors online?" "All systems green," Raphael confirmed, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Baseline readings established." Marcus picked up the sealed container holding the Xylaris sample. The parasite appeared innocuous, a semi-transparent, viscous fluid with faint phosphorescent properties. It had been collected from the brain tissue of a deceased colonist, carefully preserved in a nutrient solution that kept it dormant but viable. "Last chance to back out," Elena said, quietly. Marcus looked at each of his teammates in turn. "I believe in this team, and frankly, if we don't find a solution soon, Xylaris will reach Earth's colonies within months. Millions will die." He loaded the sample into an auto-injector. "Ready the containment protocols, just in case." And Torres, "I'll be monitoring from the security station with a stun unit if needed," she confirmed grimly. Marcus took a deep breath and pressed the injector against his forearm. There was a soft hiss as the parasite entered his bloodstream. "Injection complete," he announced calmly. "Now we wait." Silva's screens immediately displayed a cascade of data as the biosensors began transmitting. Xylaris is active. It's moving through your bloodstream faster than our models predicted. Marcus felt nothing at first, just the weight of his colleagues' worried gazes. He moved to the observation chamber, a reinforced room with a bed, monitoring equipment, and transparent walls that would allow the team to observe him while maintaining biosecurity. "I'll provide verbal updates to supplement the data," he said as Elena sealed him inside. "Let's start with hourly recordings." The first 2 hours passed uneventfully. The parasite dispersed through Marcus's bloodstream, but showed no signs of the aggressive tissue invasion documented in autopsy reports. By the third hour, however, Marcus noticed a slight tingling in his extremities. "Timestamp 1547, he dictated. "Experiencing peripheral paresthesia, primarily in fingers and toes. Body temperature elevated by approximately 1 degree Celsius." Elena frowned at the readings. "Your white blood cell count is rising, but not attacking the parasite. It's almost as if they don't recognize it as a threat." Marcus finished. "Fascinating. The Xylaris must have some form of molecular mimicry." By hour 5, the tingling had intensified to mild pain, and Marcus had developed a persistent headache. The team watched with growing concern as the biosensors indicated increased activity around his central nervous system. "It's congregating near your spinal cord," Silva reported, "concentrating particularly at the cervical vertebrae." Marcus winced as a sharp pain shot up his neck. "I believe it's attempting to access my central nervous system through the peripheral nerve pathways. Quite efficient." His voice had taken on a strained quality. Elena pressed closer to the glass. "Your pain levels are spiking. We should administer analgesics." "No," Marcus said firmly. "No interference. We need to see the natural progression." As night fell on Aurora Station, the rest of the crew was informed that the biology team was conducting a sensitive experiment requiring quarantine. Only Commander Reyes received the full briefing, responding with a mixture of anger and reluctant approval. "If you die, Hale, I'll personally ensure your research is attributed to someone more sensible." The commander had growled over the comlink. By midnight, Marcus was lying on the bed, his body racked with waves of pain as the parasite began establishing connections with his nervous system. The biosensors glowed blue beneath his skin, mapping the Xylaris' progress in real time. "It's fascinating," he gasped between spasms. "The pain isn't random, it's almost communicative, like it's testing neural pathways." Elena had refused to leave, monitoring his vital signs while Torres and Silva took turns resting. "Your temperature is 39.4 Celsius now, heart rate elevated. Marcus, we need to consider intervention." "Not yet," he insisted. "The parasite is revealing itself. Look at the pattern of neural firing." The holographic display showed an unusual synchronization of neural activity. Marcus's brain was lighting up in areas associated with both pain processing and pattern recognition. "It's using pain as a mapping mechanism," he realized aloud. "Pain forces the brain to respond, revealing neural architecture. It's learning my nervous system." As dawn approached, Marcus's condition deteriorated rapidly. Hallucinations began, shifting colors, phantom voices, and the unsettling sensation of something moving beneath his skin. The biosensors captured it all, sending terabytes of data to Silva's systems. "I can see it," Marcus whispered, staring at nothing. "Not with my eyes, with my mind. It's building something inside me." Torres shifted uncomfortably. "He's becoming delirious. We should terminate the experiment." "Wait," Silva said, pointing to his screen. Look at this protein structure the parasite is synthesizing. I've never seen anything like it. The molecular visualization showed complex proteins being produced by the Xylaris, structures that seemed designed to mimic human neurotransmitters while carrying foreign genetic material. Marcus suddenly sat upright, his eyes wide. It's hiding. That's how it evades immune response. The protein. It's a camouflage mechanism. The parasite wraps itself in neurological tissue markers. The immune system sees it as part of the nervous system. His insight came at a cost. The sudden movement triggered a seizure, his body arching off the bed as electrical storms cascaded through his compromised nervous system. Elena rushed to the chamber door, emergency protocols overriding her scientific detachment. "Silva, prepare the antibody compound," she shouted. "Torres, I need assistance." Inside the containment room, Marcus convulsed violently, the biosensors flashing erratically as they struggled to maintain contact with his skin. Through the fog of pain and neural disruption, he fought to maintain consciousness, knowing that every second of data was precious. The seizure subsided after 97 agonizing seconds, leaving Marcus weakened but alert. Elena had entered the chamber in full biohazard gear, scanning him with handheld medical equipment. "I'm recording unusual activity in your frontal lobe," she said, her voice muffled by her respirator. "The parasite seems to be concentrating there." Marcus nodded weakly. "Decision-making center. Logical. If you want to control a host." Silva's voice came through the intercom. "The protein structures are changing again. They're becoming more complex." "Listen!" Marcus gasped, grabbing Elena's gloved hand. "The protein is the key. It's how Xylaris hides from the immune system. If we can tag that protein, mark it somehow, we could help the immune system recognize the invader." Elena looked doubtful. "Your fever is dangerously high. You may not be thinking clearly." "My thinking is perfectly clear," Marcus insisted, though his voice slurred slightly. "It's my body that's failing. The data doesn't lie." By the afternoon of the second day, Marcus's condition had stabilized somewhat, though the team remained on high alert. The parasite appeared to have entered a new phase, focusing less on expansion and more on integration with his neural network. "It's remarkable," Silva muttered, reviewing the data. "It's not just attacking, it's rebuilding, creating new pathways." Marcus had been quiet for hours, lying still with his eyes closed. The team had worried he'd lost consciousness until he suddenly spoke, his voice unnervingly calm. "It wants to survive," he said, "not destroy. Colonists died because the integration was imperfect. The parasite doesn't understand human physiology well enough yet." Torres exchanged a concerned glance with Elena. "He's anthropomorphizing the parasite. Classic sign of cognitive alteration." "No," Marcus insisted, opening his eyes. They were bloodshot, with unnaturally dilated pupils. "Not anthropomorphizing, recognizing intent. All organisms seek to survive. Xylaris is exceptionally adaptable." Elena approached the glass. "Marcus, we're seeing changes in your brain chemistry. Your serotonin and dopamine levels are fluctuating wildly." "Of course they are," he replied with a strange smile. "The parasite is experimenting, learning what triggers what response." He paused, tilting his head as if listening to something. "It's actually quite elegant." Torres stepped closer to Elena. "He's entering the behavioral modification stage documented in the colonists. We need to administer the experimental antibody now." "Not yet," Marcus said sharply, sitting up with surprising strength. "We're close to a breakthrough. The parasite's protein shield. I can feel it forming connections with my peripheral nervous system. If we can isolate the frequency." Silva looked up from his console. "Frequency?" "Yes," Marcus nodded eagerly. The protein oscillates at a specific electromagnetic frequency to mimic human neural tissue. That's why conventional scans miss it. But if we could disrupt that frequency... He trailed off, wincing as pain lanced through his skull. Elena quickly scanned him. Your intracranial pressure is rising. We can't wait much longer. Marcus fought through the pain. Run a spectral analysis on the protein structure. Look for resonance patterns. Silva worked feverishly at his station, while Elena monitored Marcus's deteriorating condition. Torres stood ready at the containment door, stun weapon charged. Found something, Silva announced after several tense minutes. The protein does have a unique vibrational signature, just outside normal human neural range, but it's unstable, constantly shifting to stay hidden. Adaptive camouflage, Marcus murmured. Brilliant. Elena frowned. Are you admiring this parasite that's killing you? Marcus gave her a weak smile. A scientist appreciates elegant solutions, even from an adversary. His expression suddenly contorted in pain. Something's changing. The biosensors went wild, registering a massive surge of activity in his brain. On the screens, they could see the Xylaris proteins rapidly multiplying and spreading throughout his central nervous system. It's accelerating, Silva shouted. The parasite is making a push toward complete neural integration. Marcus's back arched in agony, his face contorted. It's defending itself, he gasped. It knows. We're close to understanding it. Torres moved toward the door. That's it. I'm terminating this experiment. Wait, Marcus cried out. The frequency. Target the proteins with a plasma beam. Calibrated to disrupt the vibrational pattern. Silva typed frantically. It could work. A precisely tuned plasma burst might destabilize the protein structure without damaging human tissue. Elena hesitated. That's completely theoretical. We have no idea if... Trust me, Marcus pleaded, his eyes clearing momentarily. It's our best chance. Before Elena could respond, Marcus's expression changed dramatically. His features hardened, eyes widening with an unnatural intensity. With unexpected strength, he lunged from the bed and slammed against the containment glass. No interference, he roared, his voice distorted. The process must complete. Torres immediately raised her weapon. Rage state initiated. He's lost control. Marcus pounded against the glass, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. The biosensors flashed frantically as his neural patterns went haywire. The parasite has reached his limbic system, Elena said grimly. It's triggering the fight-or-flight response to protect itself. Silva looked up from his calculations. I've calibrated the frequency for the plasma beam, but I need time to integrate it with the medical systems. Marcus suddenly stopped his assault on the glass, dropping to his knees. His expression flickered between rage and desperation. Elena, he gasped, momentarily himself again. It's trying to take control, can't fight much longer. The frequency is 27.3 megahertz, modulated at 42 hertz intervals. Elena nodded, relaying the information to Silva. Hold on, Marcus. Just a little longer. Marcus collapsed on the floor, convulsing as the parasite fought for complete dominance. The team worked frantically, Silva programming the plasma emitters while Elena prepared emergency medical interventions and Torres stood guard. Ready, Silva announced after several heart-stopping minutes. The plasma emitters have been recalibrated to target the specific frequency of the Xylaris proteins. Elena looked through the glass at Marcus, who had fallen ominously still. His vital signs are crashing. We're losing him. Do it, Torres commanded. Silva activated the system. Inside the containment chamber, focused beams of pale blue plasma converged on Marcus's motionless form. The energy wasn't visible to the naked eye, but the biosensors registered its effect, glowing brightly as the carefully modulated frequency disrupted the parasite's protein shields. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then Marcus gasped, his body seizing as the Xylaris fought against the attack. The plasma continued its invisible assault, systematically destroying the parasitic proteins without harming human tissue. "It's working!" Silva exclaimed. "The parasite's protein structures are destabilizing." Elena monitored Marcus's vital signs. His neural patterns are still chaotic. The parasite is fighting back. The battle raged for 17 excruciating minutes. Marcus's body alternated between violent convulsions and eerie stillness as the plasma gradually weakened the Xylaris' hold. Finally, his biosensors showed a dramatic shift. The parasite's activity plummeted as its protective proteins failed. "We've created a window," Elena said urgently. "The parasite is vulnerable. I'm administering the experimental antibody now." She entered the chamber and injected the compound directly into Marcus's carotid artery. The specially engineered antibodies, now able to recognize the exposed parasite, raced through his bloodstream to attack the weakened Xylaris. "Immune response intensifying," Silva reported. "His white blood cells are finally recognizing the parasite as foreign." Torres lowered her weapon slightly. "Is he going to survive?" Elena could only shake her head uncertainly as she worked to stabilize him. "We've done everything we can. The rest is up to him." The next 12 hours were critical. Marcus remained unconscious as his body fought the crippled but still dangerous parasite. The team took shifts monitoring his condition, analyzing the flood of data from the biosensors, and refining their understanding of the Xylaris. Silva made the breakthrough during the early morning hours of the third day. "I've isolated the complete mechanism," he announced, bleary-eyed but triumphant. "The parasite uses a 3-stage protein camouflage system. Stage 1 mimics cell surface receptors. Stage 2 replicates neural electrical patterns. Stage 3 actually incorporates host DNA to create hybrid structures. The immune system reads as self." Elena looked up from Marcus's bedside. "Can we develop a treatment based on this?" "Better?" Silva grinned. "A vaccine. If we can prime the immune system to recognize these specific protein patterns before infection, colonists would have natural immunity." Torres, who had remained stoically present throughout the ordeal, allowed herself a small smile. "So his insane gamble might actually save the colonies." "If he survives to see it," Elena said softly, looking down at Marcus's pale face. As if on cue, Marcus stirred, his eyelids fluttering. "Did we get it?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Elena leaned closer. "Marcus, can you hear me?" "Loud and clear," he murmured. "The parasite?" "Neutralized," she assured him. "Not completely eliminated yet, but your immune system is finishing the job. The plasma frequency disruption worked exactly as you predicted." Marcus attempted a weak smile. "Data collected?" Silva stepped forward. "More than we could have hoped for. We've mapped the entire parasitic mechanism. We're already working on synthesizing a vaccine." "Good team," Marcus whispered before drifting back to unconsciousness, this time into natural, healing sleep rather than parasitic coma. Recovery was slow and fraught with setbacks. The Xylaris, even in defeat, left lasting damage. Marcus suffered from tremors, occasional seizures, and neurological symptoms that would likely persist for years. But his mind remained intact, and his contribution to science immeasurable. 2 weeks after the experiment, Marcus sat in a wheelchair in Aurora Station's observation lounge, looking down at the swirling clouds of Horus 4. Elena stood beside him, reviewing the latest test results. The vaccine trials in the lab are showing 100% effectiveness, she reported. The first human trials on volunteers will begin next week. If all goes well, we can start vaccinating the colonial populations within a month. Marcus nodded, his movements slightly jerky from the neurological damage. And the live Xylaris samples? Contained and being studied under strict protocols. Elena assured him. Your data has given us a comprehensive understanding of their life cycle and vulnerabilities. Torres joined them, standing at parade rest, as was her habit. Commander Reyes asked me to inform you that the Interplanetary Council has reversed their position. They're now fast-tracking all Xylaris research and treatment protocols. Amazing what nearly losing a colony world will do for bureaucratic efficiency, Marcus remarked dryly. Silva arrived last, carrying a datapad with the latest results. We've confirmed something interesting, he said. The Xylaris isn't actually trying to kill its hosts. The deaths were essentially mistakes. The parasite attempting to integrate too quickly with an unfamiliar neural system. I felt that, Marcus said quietly. When it was inside me, it wasn't malevolent, just alien. Survival is its primary directive, just like any organism. Elena frowned. You almost sound sympathetic to it. Marcus shrugged. Understanding your enemy doesn't mean forgiving it. But yes, there's something almost admirable about its adaptability. He gestured to the planet below. We should collect more samples, study how it evolved. There might be beneficial applications once we fully understand its mechanisms. Torres raised an eyebrow. You want to go back down there? After what you just went through? Not personally. Marcus chuckled, then winced as pain shot through his head. At least, not until I can walk without assistance. But we should send a properly equipped team. The conversation was interrupted by a message from Commander Reyes, requesting their presence in the briefing room. As Silva helped Marcus maneuver his wheelchair through the station corridors, the scientist's thoughts drifted to the strange connection he had briefly shared with the alien parasite. There had been moments, during the height of the infection, when he had sensed something almost like consciousness, not human intelligence, but an alien awareness that had brushed against his mind. He hadn't shared this with the others yet. Some experiences were too subjective, too easily dismissed as hallucinations or fever dreams. But Marcus knew what he had felt. The Xylaris wasn't simply a parasite. It was a collective organism capable of rudimentary communication. And if that were true, the implications were staggering. The briefing room was crowded with station personnel when they arrived. Commander Reyes, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair and the bearing of someone who had seen too many crises, stood at the head of the table. Dr. Hale, she acknowledged with a nod. I'm pleased to see you recovered enough to join us. Your team's achievement has not gone unnoticed. The Council has designated the Xylaris vaccine as Priority Alpha for all colonial outposts. There was a round of applause, which Marcus accepted with an embarrassed smile. The credit belongs to the entire team, he insisted. I was merely the experimental subject. Nevertheless, Reyes continued, your willingness to risk your life has saved countless others. The Council has also approved your request for a dedicated Xylaris research division, with you as Chief Scientific Advisor. Once you're medically cleared, of course. Elena squeezed Marcus's shoulder gently. Which won't be for several months, at minimum, she added firmly. The meeting continued with discussions of vaccine distribution, quarantine protocols, and future research directions. Throughout it all, Marcus found his mind returning to that alien presence he had briefly encountered, a life form so different from humanity, yet driven by the same fundamental imperative, survival. As the meeting concluded and the team prepared to return to their respective duties, Silva pulled Marcus aside. "There's something else in the data I didn't mention earlier," he said quietly. "During the final stages of infection, just before we administered the plasma treatment, the biosensors picked up unusual patterns in your frontal lobe, almost like—" "Like what?" Marcus prompted when Silva hesitated. "Like the parasite was trying to establish two-way communication," Silva finished. "Not just controlling you, but creating a neural interface." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with his physical condition. "I need to see that data." Later, alone in his quarters, Marcus reviewed the neural scans from the height of his infection. Silva had been right. There were patterns that couldn't be explained by simple parasitic invasion. The Xylaris hadn't just been taking control, it had been trying to establish a dialogue. The implications were both terrifying and fascinating. If the Xylaris was capable of communication, even at a primitive level, it raised profound questions about its nature and origins. Was it a naturally evolved parasite, or something engineered? And if the latter, by whom? And for what purpose? Marcus stared out at the stars, visible through his viewport, feeling suddenly very small. Humanity's expansion into the cosmos had brought wonders and terrors in equal measure. Xylaris was merely the latest in a long line of challenges that would shape their future among the stars. His neural implants, remnants of the biosensors that had saved his life, tingled faintly, a permanent souvenir of his encounter with the alien parasite. The doctors had been unable to remove them completely without risking further neurological damage. In a way, Marcus was grateful. They served as a reminder of how close they had come to disaster, and how much remained to be discovered. A notification chimed softly, pulling him from his thoughts. The preliminary vaccine trials were showing promising results. All test subjects had developed the targeted antibodies with minimal side effects. Production would begin within days. Marcus smiled tiredly. Whatever mysteries the Xylaris still held could wait. For now, they had won a crucial victory, not just for the colonists on Horus 4, but for humanity's future among the stars. His sacrifice had yielded the knowledge they needed to fight back against one of the most insidious threats they had ever encountered. And yet, as he drifted toward sleep, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they had only glimpsed the surface of the Xylaris' true nature. In his dreams, he sometimes still felt that alien presence, watching and waiting from the shadows of his mind, not malevolent, but patient and endlessly adaptive. The battle had been won, but the war for understanding had only just begun. 3 months later, Marcus stood without assistance for the first time since the experiment, supporting himself on parallel bars in Aurora Station's rehabilitation center. Elena monitored his progress, making notes on her datapad. "Remarkable improvement," she commented. "The neurological regeneration is proceeding faster than expected." Marcus took another shaky step forward. "The new treatment protocol is working, then?" Elena nodded. "The neural regenerator we developed based on the Xylaris protein structure is showing excellent results. Ironic that the very thing that nearly killed you is now helping you recover." "Not ironic," Marcus corrected her. "Appropriate. The greatest dangers often hold the greatest potential benefits, if we're brave enough to look for them." As he completed the walking exercise and returned to his wheelchair, still necessary for longer distances, Marcus contemplated the future. The Xylaris vaccine had been successfully deployed to all colonial outposts, with no reported failures. Research continued into the parasite's unusual properties, yielding new insights into neural plasticity and biological adaptation. And deep within a secure laboratory on Aurora Station, samples of the Xylaris remained in stasis, waiting to reveal more of their secrets. Marcus had insisted on maintaining a living specimen repository, despite objections from the security team and even Commander Reyes. "We learn nothing from dead organisms," he had argued, "and what we don't understand can still harm us." The Council had eventually agreed. With stringent containment protocols in place, Marcus would oversee the research personally once he was fully recovered, a prospect that filled him with both anticipation and a lingering dread. For in his dreams, the Xylaris still spoke to him in wordless impulses and alien concepts. And sometimes, in the quiet hours of the station's night cycle, he found himself answering back. The research team gathered in the observation lounge for a small celebration. 6 months had passed since the experimental infection, and the last colonial outpost had reported full vaccination coverage. The Xylaris threat had been contained. Torres raised a glass of synthetic champagne. "To successful missions and surviving scientific madness. To understanding our adversaries," Silva added. "To pushing boundaries," Elena said, giving Marcus a pointed look that held both admiration and lingering concern. Marcus smiled, raising his own glass with a hand that trembled only slightly. "To the next frontier." As their glasses clinked together, Marcus gazed out at the stars. The Xylaris had been just one challenge among many that awaited humanity in the vast cosmos. Others would come, some perhaps even more dangerous, but they would face them with the same courage, curiosity, and willingness to sacrifice that had served them thus far. And in the secure laboratory below, locked away behind layers of security and containment protocols, the Xylaris waited patiently, evolving, adapting, learning, just as humanity always did.